All right, so today, our guest today with us inside studio, Zuriel Oduwole Azelia Nashigo. They here, and I don't hear what she talk on top that video where they and we don't talk and say this is a person where they go around to make sure say things they happen for there, so they go be able to to yarn with to stop this whole girl-child marriage, early children marriage, and things like that, and create alternative education for the girl child. She did here with us. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
It's great. It's great to have you. Seeing the kind of thing what you want to do. How did you look at me?
I look at
you're admiring the fact that someone...
Especially I look at young age, yes. What make her mind even enter here. So in a country where we say we get so many children where they drop out of school already, out of school children, what make it can't enter your mind to come say, apart from normal education, make her teach children, especially girl children, alternative education?
That's a good question. Okay, so with alternative education, I think I should start from the beginning. When I started my education advocacy work when I was 10, I was mostly traveling to various African countries, and I was doing three things. I was either speaking to students in school about the importance of staying in school. I was talking to parents about why it's so important to let their children, but especially their girls, go to school. And I was also speaking to world leaders, so the presidents and prime ministers of the different countries, about making policy so it's easier for the children in their countries to go to school and get education. That's what I've majorly been doing from the age of 10 until now. But recently, I realized that it's not enough to just tell kids to go to school, or like say we have to send kids to school, because there's some parts of the world and some communities where that's not an option. They don't have a classroom, they don't have a school. And so when you look at all the numbers that you hear every single year, like from UNESCO and from UNICEF about X amount of 100 million children out of school worldwide, those numbers hardly get changed. And part of that is because there's that part of the population that doesn't even have access to school. And so those numbers remain unchanged. So I thought to myself, there are more ways to schooling than just going into a physical classroom and learning math, learning history, learning science. And so that's how I came up with alternative education. The whole point of alternative education is to give these youth, especially girls, skills that they can use to empower themselves, to get employment, and also give back to their communities. So when I was at the Qatar Foundation's annual or biannual WISE Summit Education Conference, I was talking about alternative education. Now, I'm a filmmaker, so one of the things that I do of alternative education is I started a basic filmmaking workshop where I teach basic filmmaking skills to students and youth and unemployed youth as well. And the whole point is to just give them this tool and give them a skill that they can use to empower themselves and also to give back to their communities. So this filmmaking workshop, we started it in Namibia back in 2016. So I was 13 at the time. I just taught them very basic skills, like editing, how to manage a camera, and things like that. And then 9 months after that first filmmaking workshop, one of the girls actually went out, she borrowed a camera from somebody, and she made her own documentary, and she got to shop it around to different news networks. And that just showed the power of alternative education. Most of these kids didn't finish school, and most of them were unemployed. But by giving them such a skill as filmmaking, they were able to use that to empower themselves. And so that's why I came up with alternative education, because I truly believe if we start to focus on this aspect of education, then this like 250 somewhat million children out of school worldwide, we can begin to start seeing a decrease in that number. It's all about how we measure it. So instead of measuring how many kids are in school, measure how many kids are educated. And so that's basically what it's all about.
Great stuff.
I
know a question for your mouth.
I have a lot to ask. I'm looking at the conversation here. You're looking at helping end the girl-child marriage, because that's one very major thing that happens in this part of the world.
Many parts, but yeah,
very,
here.
Yeah. So why did you decide to also focus on that as well? Looking at not just the empowering the girls, with the knowledge of filmmaking. Why is it that, okay, the girl-child marriage, let's end that?
I think because in all the various travels I've done, so my education advocacy work, I've been now to 19 countries, of course here in Nigeria, but also countries like Namibia, Ethiopia, Kenya, Malawi. And what I see is that there's different reasons why girls aren't going to school and getting an education. There's social reasons, so sometimes societies like girls shouldn't go to school and get an education. There's economic reasons. Maybe sometimes the parents don't have enough resources, which happens a lot.
Absolutely.
The boys go to school and the girls stay at home. And then another major issue as well is early marriage, like girl marriage. And what I've learned is that, and this is just so sad, but girls as young as 10 and 9, they'll get married off at a young age. And because they're married off, they're pulled out of school. And so there goes their education. In a sense, unfortunately, there goes their future as well. And so with my education advocacy work, it's just looking at ways to try and help this issue of out-of-school children, especially out-of-school girls. So with girl marriage, that's a major barrier to allowing them to go to school. And so when you mentioned ending child marriage, it was a project that I did in Mozambique back in 2018. I went to meet President Felipe Nyusi in Maputo. And basically, just two basic things. I was going there to first show myself as an example of what an educated girl can do if she's allowed to go to school and supported by her community. And then also as well, I wanted to talk about the importance of allowing the girls to go to school and how allowing them to get married young prevents them from getting that education and going to school. And that's basically what I do whenever I speak to world leaders. It's showing myself as an example. Because what I've learned is that sometimes there's this thing called serious agenda disconnect. And what I mean by that is, I'm sure you can agree, over the past few decades, whenever you hear of the issue of girls' education, the majority of the people advocating it and pushing it have been adults. Have been adult women in their 30s, in their 40s, sometimes even 50s. And on such a global stage where the majority of these different global areas and global regions are controlled by men in power, when they look and see women 30s and 40s, it doesn't always click because they're like, okay, you're talking about girls, but you're not a girl. So what, what does it have to do with you? And so that's what I do. As a girl, I go around and I show myself as an example. So in Mozambique, when I was wrapping up the meeting with the president, I asked him a very simple question. I said, do you not want all the girls in your country to do even better things than I'm doing? And how do you say no to that? And I said, you have to let them go to school. You have to let them get educated and don't let them get married young. So we met in 2018 and then June 2019, so I think about 16 months later, with the help of many other voices, Mozambique formally outlawed girl marriage after decades and decades of practice, which is just an amazing thing for the girls in that country. And that's where it all comes back to education. If I wasn't allowed to go to school and get that education, then all these different projects I'm doing, whether it's alternative education with filmmaking, or whether it's like speaking on behalf of girls in countries about the importance of not letting them get married off at young ages, that becomes a lot harder to do, and it becomes a lot more impossible to do. And then going back on my thing of alternative education as well with filmmaking, there's many ways. You can teach them entrepreneurship, teach them coding. For me, it's filmmaking because I'm a filmmaker. It's even an initiative that I shared with Lagos State Governor back in February of 2020, I believe, and basically just talking about ways to implement such alternative education curriculum in Lagos schools. Because, yeah, honestly, whether kids are in school or not, there's always a skill that they can learn. And there's always something that they can do to help give them skills to better their future and better their understanding of things as well. So it's something I've been talking about for a while. I've also showcased part of it back in the US. I went to a school called Ron Clark Academy in Atlanta, Georgia. It's an amazing school. You guys should fly out there just to visit this school. It's an amazing school. I think Oprah even at one point called it the best school in America. And basically, they weren't teaching them filmmaking, they weren't teaching them entrepreneurship, but the way they taught them the basics, subjects like math and science and history through dance and through creativity, that in its own form is also alternative education. So there's so many different ways that we can implement this.
We have Azelia here with us. Yes. It's good. It's good. Azelia, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm great. So looking at, we've been speaking to your sister and she's been telling us all this great stuff that you guys have been doing. So tell us, from your perspective now, what is your driving force behind this whole project for you? What is pushing you, basically, to get involved?
I think it started, I guess, when Zuriel's journey started when she was 9 and created her first documentary on the Ghana Revolution. And we flew out there, and there we began to see children who were not in school. And Zuriel being older, she was able to notice it first and analyze it before I could as well. But then after a while, I was starting to pick up on it and go, okay, I see the issue here. I see that we need to go out and make a difference and implement different things that we can to help and get more children into school as well.
Good. Great stuff. And I was going to ask Zuriel this, looking at your immediate community, now where you are, because it's good to go out, tell people about everything, but the immediate community, are you guys also covering that area where you stay, the girls around there? Have you impacted the people around your immediate community before you decided to go out to the world, to different countries?
I assume by immediate community, you mean like back home, back in the US, right, Los Angeles? Well, see, the different projects that I do, there's the Education Initiative, and that's trying to get out-of-school kids back into school. That's a challenge that is majorly faced overseas and in other countries as well. But whenever I go and speak to different schools, part of it is showing myself as an example of what you can do if you stay in school, because that's still something we talk about in the US, staying in school, getting the education, and then also if you have dreams, and you truly believe in your dreams and your passion, and you allow that to drive you, to help you accomplish your dreams. So I mentioned the Ron Clark Academy in Atlanta, Georgia. That's one of the schools I've spoken to in the U.S. I also spoke to a school actually like 10 minutes down from where I used to live, Eisenhower High. I also was part of We Day event. So like they got 16,000 screaming kids in California in the San Jose Center. They came out there, and the whole point is just showing myself as an example. Because honestly, anywhere that you go, it's important to see what others are doing so that you can understand what's possible as well. One of the things I talk about, in addition to education and why I choose to show myself as an example, is because there's this thing that I always say, it's show, not tell. Right? Sometimes you can say something like, oh, when you get older, you can be a doctor. When you get older, you can be a lawyer. But in that moment, the kids might not see it, and the parents are probably like, oh, that's too far down the line. But if you show them an example of what they can do from now, from age 9, from 12, 13, 14, you show them what's possible, then they can look at that and say, huh, I can do that too. I can do better things than that. And so that's the message I have, whether I'm speaking to schools here in the African continent, in Europe, or back in home in California.
Nice. Show, not tell. Let them see it. Let them see you. Okay. Before we come back, we have another thing, another clip to show you guys. Before we have our final conversation with Zuriel and Azalea right here. Let's check this out. All right, we just simply show on that one because they talk about different countries where she don't visit to make sure say she push this, they push this agenda. And yes, we have to show clips of where she's been. You can see from there different conversations with world leaders as you see for there. So great stuff, great stuff. Prepare, you get anything we want add for here or make we just wrap up the matter?
Me, the thing, you know, what thing they do, they sweet my belly, but my major concern, especially concerning filmmaking and all that, how you say they use gather equipment, you know, that kind of thing, because last person go need camera, person go need computer where you go use edit and all that. How far this one will be say support, you know, come easily like that? How you they take manage them?
That's another good question. I think she can talk about it as well, because we've both done this filmmaking workshop together. I started in Namibia, but then she's been on, like, I think you were in the one in Senegal, the one that we had in Ghana, and so we've had a lot of fun together doing these filmmaking workshops. And part of what we do is we show them, like I mentioned, basic editing skills. So we show them free software, how to get the free software, and then, you know, nowadays, you don't have to have like a SLR camera or like one of those, or any of these production cameras you have right here. You can use your phone. You can go out, you can film something, and you can even borrow equipment as well. The story I told you about of that girl in Namibia, she didn't have a camera, she didn't have the equipment, but she went out and she borrowed it. She went out to her community, her neighborhood, and she borrowed the equipment. So the thing is, we're not trying to make it hard for them to learn filmmaking skills. And that's why we push things like how you can use your phone, how you can edit from your phone. And we show them all these different skills and tricks that they can use, so that way they can go out and be a filmmaker. No matter, like, we don't want there to be an issue of there's not enough equipment or there's not enough funding. We're telling them, no. You can use your phone. There's YouTube. There's all sorts of like sites you can upload videos to for free. And that's basically what we've been teaching them at the filmmaking workshops.
So far, looking at the progress now, let's talk about the progress of this, your project. How far has the progress been? Have you been seeing, has it been really moving as fast as you want it to go, the impact?
Okay, well, when you say this project, there's a span of projects. With Girls' Education and Advocacy, by the grace of God, we'll continue doing the work, and hopefully we'll start to see a lot more change as well, honestly. Because like, this is not something you do for a year, you just drop and hope that, everything's changed, you know? Sadly, it does take a bit of time. And we hope that with more time and with more, these different projects in different countries, we'll see a lot more change. And then with regards to the filmmaking workshops, I mentioned the success story in Namibia. We've also done the workshop now in Mexico, Nigeria, Ghana. Yeah, and so we've seen success with that. And Another thing that we've done as well as part of our Disusu Foundation is we launched something called the Disusu Awards. And basically what we do is we realize that in the work that I've done with presidents and prime ministers about policies, they're not the only ones who can make a difference and who can create change. There's also first ladies, and there's also gender ministers of different countries as well who have a lot of influence and who also have a role to play. So this Disusu Awards was started 8 years ago? I think eight years ago, 2014. So yeah, 8 years ago. And basically we recognize the measurable works of a first lady on the African continent and of a gender minister doing a lot in the areas of girls' education and also gender development. And that's actually one of the reasons why we're here in Nigeria this time. Your humanitarian minister has actually won the 2021 Disusu Award for gender minister doing a lot in the areas of gender development and girls' education in her country, which is Nigeria. So we've seen a lot of success with the program, and we look forward to many more years.
Great stuff, great stuff. Okay, so just before we go, just in case people want to, have like collaborations or partnership with you, how can they reach out to you? Is it your website, or so what's the website so they can go on there to check it out?
Yeah, of course. So our website, our foundation's website, is dususu.org. So it's DUSUSU.org. And then for me personally as well, they can follow our social medias. It's just our first name and our last name. So Zuriel is ZURIEL Oduwole. And then Azalea, do you want to spell your name?
Sure. AZALIAH.
Oduwole as well.
So Oduwole as well. All right, great stuff. Great. It was good to have you guys here.
Thank you so much. It's been a lot of fun.
It was amazing. It was so amazing. Ladies, at least we've seen what girls they do. As she said, she made a very, very important conversation earlier. Say, around the world, you will see people who represent the girls as older people, but this time, the younger generation don't decide to take over. And yes, please, this is good, very necessary. Make we show support. Last. All right, we'll go move on to some other things. Alexis Gallery been reopening, and we did here to check them out as well. So we'll just bring on this small clip of what's happened for there. When we come back, at still plenty for hand. Don't go anywhere. And the Good Morning Naija show videos will come.